Welcome to Grow Black Leaders,
your go-to source for all things leadership, growth, and development.
for Black leaders, by Black leaders. Let's grow. Welcome to the Grow Black Leaders podcast, where we exist to create a space, a community, an ecosystem where Black leaders cultivate Black leaders. Look, we understand that leadership on its own is complex, but when you're navigating leadership as a Black person, it also has additional nuances. So we're so excited that you are joining us today. I am Ronaldo.
And I'm Christian.
And we have the privilege of being the host of this podcast. I am so excited about today's interview. We have a dynamic individual that's joining us today. I know that you may not know her yet, but you will love this interview. She's going to have an opportunity to introduce herself in a second. But Renee Sattiewhite is joining us from the African American Credit Union Coalition. I love this woman. Many of you know I lost my mother in 2020. She's one of those individuals who stepped up and in to be like a mother to me. You'll hear her probably refer to me as son throughout this conversation, but I am excited. She is dynamic. She loves leading. She loves nurturing. She loves mentoring and guiding. And most importantly, she loves creating spaces where Black and brown people succeed. So today, welcome to the Grow Black Leaders podcast, Renee Sattiewhite. We are so glad to have you. Now, Renee, look, I know that our audience, they may not know you just yet. Some of them may, but in case they don't, I want you to start by sharing with our audience, who is Renee Sattiewhite?
Well, thank you, Ronaldo and Kristen. I am Renee Sattiewhite, and I'm the possibility of people serving other people passionately. I'll say that again. I'm the possibility of people serving other people passionately. And what do? Well, I have the privilege, the honor of leading the AACUC, the African American Credit Union Coalition, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization in the credit union space. And in that space, our mission is to promote advocacy and provide professional development for our members. So we do that in a few different ways, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, but that's who I am in a nutshell. And I'm Kathy's daughter, and Kathy will be 82
Come on.
on Friday.
So I am, like I said, I'm just thrilled to explore this dialogue with you. I know that I'm going to learn some things from you and about you. My wife will, our audience will. And one of the things that I'd love for you to unpack, and you probably have to reach way back because I know that you are one of those individuals who has been leading for quite some time in different ways. And I'd like for you, if you can, to share with us, what is your earliest leadership memory? When do you kind of remember starting this process of recognizing that you are a leader, or when did you have the first opportunity to put that leadership into practice?
That's a really good question. So I don't know if this counts, but you did ask for my earliest memory. So one of my earliest memories, and I tell people I'm a bossy chick, but all in kind, right? All in kind. So I remember years ago when I'm the oldest of four, and my mom has three daughters. And so I've always loved Diana Ross and the Supremes. And so I can remember being Diana Ross and making my sisters put on these towels to have long hair, and we sing the Supreme song. So that's my earliest memory. I'm probably going to say I was probably around 7 or 8 years old, making sure that they were my Supremes.
So you decided right up front, you said, listen, I want to make sure y'all understand if we're going to do Diana Ross in the Supremes, I'm going to have to be Diana. All right, that's what you decided. Y'all going to have to be the Supremes. You know, I kind of relate. First of all, I'm from a family of four as well. My parents had 3 boys and a girl. I say family of 4 kids. They had 3 boys and a girl. We have 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. So you would be like Raina, our oldest. And it's so funny because I probably have a similarity there in that I always emerged as the leader, you know. So whether I was singing, as a matter of fact, when my wife first met me, she was like, you're like the family spokesperson, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to be the spokesperson. I just find myself in positions and predicaments where it feels like somebody has to step up and lead the way. And it's just quite natural for me to do that? I know that you have some things that you want to explore with her as
I
well.
was about to say, first of all, I feel like that is the cutest story. And before I say that, I am so honored to finally get to, I mean, I don't know if you would call this officially meeting, but I have heard so many great things about you, Renee. And I'm just like, I am honored to be able to finally get to hear you, talk with you, and really hear and experience many of the great things that Ronaldo has gotten to experience by being associated with you. But I was saying that you having that memory with your siblings is such a funny and a cute story, because I feel like if you're able to lead your siblings, I mean, that's one of the hardest things, because I'm just looking at my own kids and how it's like a power struggle of who can lead who. So if you convince them all for you to be Diana Ross and for them to be the backup singers, I'm like, yeah, that's a mark of a true leader. She's able to convince her siblings to lead her.
Well, first of all, we messed around and had a bunch of type A kids.
Yeah,
right?
they don't. Yeah, they all try to lead. It's too many chiefs, not enough Indians. They all try to lead.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you. I know that in leadership, it can, there could be different perceptions from people whenever they are leading. I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion of the perception versus reality of leadership? What's your opinion? What's the perception versus reality of leadership?
Ooh, Kirsten, that's a good one. The problem with perception versus reality is that the perception usually wins out, right? So people ask me why I tip $20 all the time. Well, because I'm a celebrity in the credit union space, and I can't afford for anybody to say she's a cheapskate. One, I want to give, right? I used to be a waitress, so I really want to give. That's my standard tip. But the perception is the experience people have. 10 years ago, I was a leader who didn't really connect well with young people. And so I had to do some soul searching after someone told me that I was no longer going to be able to be part of their program if I didn't change my style. When I'm doing board of directors training, I used to be very in your face about it. This is what you have to know, because I think that's one of the most important jobs you can ever have. The leader, talk about leadership. You're leading in a whole organization. So I used to be really tough when I did that training. Well, so because the landscape has changed and people have changed and sensibilities have changed, the perception was that I was a very harsh leader, when in actuality, my passion is so you can get it. I want you to get it good. I want you to understand it. And so from that, the reality was I was going to lose my spot in this very prestigious organization that I wanted to be of help to if I didn't change how I was doing things. So the perception versus reality, me being someone of passion, wanting this to go well, versus the perception, this lady is too hard on us. And so I struggle with perception versus reality, which is a really good question. I struggle with that because sometimes the perception is right on spot and other times it's not at all. And so I think as leaders, we have to walk in that middle, right? In the middle. The perception is she's this or she's that. So when I say I'm the possibility of people serving other people passionately, I want people to say, yeah, I get that, instead of, I don't know about that.
I love how you explored that, because you kind of took us through a journey, how people perceive you, right? So there's a perception of what leadership is, and then there's the reality of what the execution looks like. But then also sometimes there can be this disconnect between what you are trying to release and how people perceive it once you do, right? So, and that can be one of the challenges of leadership, that can be sometimes overwhelming, sometimes very frustrating, because you're like, I don't understand why you don't understand that I'm really trying to do the right thing by you. Like, what is it that I'm missing? And so sometimes there's this level of soul searching that we have to do. You told the story of, at first people were saying you had to do some different things to reach younger people. I didn't even know that was the case. All I know is you're reaching younger people now. So there was also this part of you that was open to evolving around what people gave you as feedback. Let's explore that for a moment. we're going to go a little bit off track because I think we need to explore this. And I know that there are people in our audience that are listening, and depending on where they are on their leadership journey, they have not learned to properly embrace feedback. And this is very interesting because sometimes we can become so invested in feedback that we allow people to get us completely off track with the vision. Not all feedback is good, but there are some instances where the feedback that's being given is there to strengthen what we are putting together, building, organizing. How do you differentiate between when it's noise, right, and when it's great feedback, and how do you overcome? Listen, because you don't become a certain kind of leader without having a little bit of ego, right? I mean, the reality is, if I don't care how much of a servant leader you are, all leaders have a little bit. It's just a part of it. We just gonna go ahead and just have our confession session and say, we all, if you achieving at a certain level of leadership, there's a little bit of ego that comes along with that you have to put in check. And often putting it in check is learning how to embrace feedback. So how do you differentiate between the noise and what is quality or constructive criticism that will lead to improvement? And also, how do you digest it so that you can implement it without being offended?
So thank you for that question. Early on, I started these things called Sattiewhite must-dos. And so they're little sayings that would keep me motivated, or whenever I ran up against something, I would figure something else out. But it was a Sattiewhite must-do. So when I'm faced with feedback, first of all, feedback is a gift. And if you see it that way, you can, you can do something with it. And not all feedback is great feedback. So it's all nice and groovy when people say, "Oh, you're great, you're wonderful, you're great, you're wonderful." But then, for instance, I don't do evaluations anymore. If you want to do them, fine. I don't do them because I get stuck on the person who gave me the 3. One person gave me a 3, and I can have all the rest 5s, and I get stuck on that. So I don't want to get stuck on that because I am a perfectionist and I want to do the best I can. And so, as far as that ego is concerned, ego is edging God out. So I like to say that I'm just very confident in my abilities. And that's not arrogance, that's confidence. And again, that's perception versus reality. But when you're looking at how to take in feedback, you need to get it from a trusted source. I will listen to everybody, but I'm not going to take it in unless you've been vetted by my system. And what that system is, can you give me honest feedback? I have a group of people who work with me who are not yes, Renee people. They will give it to me and give it to me. Sometimes they give it to me in a way where it's like, did you just say that to me? And then I had to remember that when I was younger, I said things that I didn't know I shouldn't say it that way to people. There's a way to say stuff. So I just laugh now because I'm like, well, you know what? I can't get mad about it because that's what I said to so-and-so when I was 40 years old. And so when you're looking at it from that lens, the feedback, I feel like feedback is a gift. Feedback can help you get better. Feedback, and not all feedback is true. It may not be true for your circumstance. I remember I cut my hair and it was like very flat to my head. And she said, the only people who are going to reach out to you and want to date you are X and X. And I don't want to say what those X's are because it's derogatory. Now I don't want anybody to think that I would think that. But that was her reality. Now I'm going to say this, being the confident woman that I am, bald-headed, I was still cute and catching. So
tell me this. And I know my wife is going to get us to our next step in this conversation, but I had to explore this too. You have an incredibly high standard of excellence. So somewhere along your journey, you decided that if you were going to be a part of it, it was going to have to be of the highest caliber. And I know this, y'all, because listen, I'm like a next generation coming up, and I can be like, I don't know, I can go just a little rogue in my approach sometimes. The very motherly guidance and advice of Renee kicks in. Sometimes she's like, sir, you need to be in your suit for this one. You need to, she just come in. She saw me at what event, and I had walked down, and I was like, I'm together. I like my vibe. I got my jeans on with my rips in them. I actually had my red bottom shoes on. I was like a whole little situation. for me. And she looked and she was like, okay,
together.
she said, this what y'all young people doing now. How this what y'all doing? All right. And when she was saying this, I see a different standard. And I want to explore that because there has to be something in your journey that caused you to develop this expectation of yourself and things that you are attached to be excellent. I experienced it as well at the AACUC conference. So can you tell us what caused you to be that way and maybe offer our listening audience some guidance or some advice on how they can achieve a certain standard of excellence and commit to it in spite of what may be exhausting about trying to get there?
Thank you for that question. So, my mom, when she raised us, she gave us lists of things to do. We knew exactly what to do. You hear me often say, "Be clear." I want to be crystal clear about this. Well, my mother was crystal clear, and if there was 8 steps to cleaning that kitchen, she wanted to make sure that you covered each step. And so, I think that was where it started. The standard of excellence started with her. She had exposed us to such great and wonderful things in my life. And so watching her and having to make sure that you dried the dishes when you wash the dishes and you put them away. You vacuum the floor because I didn't know how to mop until I was in college because mama always had carpet on her floors. And so I knew how to shampoo carpets and I knew how to vacuum really well. But all of that is prep for what does that look like in the workplace. And so by the time I got to the workplace where I was a contributor that was looked at from a different standpoint, criterion reference instruction is where I learned how to be a trainer. And in that training, it was rigorous, very rigorous. And so I think just knowing having the bar set high for me while I was learning how to do stuff. And I'd like to say I'm an overachiever. And so if the course took 6 months to do, I think I did it in 3 months. And so those types of things, when you are busy being out front, when you want to show up as a leader, I think that you have to make sure that you are well rounded in that. And that for excellence for me is the other thing too, is when I was coming up in the era that I was coming up, my mama told me that I had to be twice as good as somebody else. And that, along with making sure that I dot every I and cross every T, I'm a technical writer by trade and I'm a trainer by heart. And so having those things combined, it gives me an extra edge. And then of course I'm a creative, as you would say, Ronaldo. I've learned that word now. I'm a creative as well. So on top of that's what, how does that look? So everything I do is buttoned up. And if I can't do it myself, I'm around people who do it better than me, who can do it, though they can execute my vision. And so that is the excellence. And then along with being the leader of the African American Craving Coalition, no one ever will get to say we are less than as an organization. We are just as good, if not better, because trust and believe we walk in excellence. It's not just Black excellence, we walk in excellence. So Ronaldo, thank you for acknowledging that.
You are welcome.
Absolutely. Everything that you're saying is so powerful and so good. I can just remember how, when you mentioned about how important it is with your mother instilling in you about being twice as good, because I feel that that's one of the realities that we face as African American leaders, where we don't always necessarily have the same opportunities, or we have to make sure we go that extra step and go the extra mile, and we aren't given the same considerations as other as other races. And that's just the reality of the situation. I once heard someone say that, that we were once taught that at one time, but they felt like we should kind of shift away from that because things are different. So I wanted to get your opinion about that. Is that a standard that you feel that we should still adhere to as African Americans, or because things have come a long way or things have changed, are we able to deviate from that?
not as Black people, not in my opinion, no ma'am. That is why when husband came downstairs rocking his ripped jeans and had just been appointed a president, I said, okay, that's the last time you're going to do that. I'm good with you. No, seriously, I'm good with you having flavor. But as a president, you've been elevated, and there's an expectation. I'm not saying you can't wear your jeans. You just can't wear them holy jeans unless you're with your family, and you're all wearing the holy jeans, which he told me y'all all have, and showed me the pictures, which I thought was very beautiful. So, with that, especially at AACUC, one of the things that I know that resonates with people is I always talk about we start on time and we end on time. I'm not playing with that. We have no drama at our conferences. A whole masses of, we had 560 Black people and there was not one tussle because we don't do that. When you set the expectation, as you know, as parents, as you set the expectation, your children will live into it. My membership lives into our excellence. They want to be part of that. I don't believe that we have reached a level where we can deviate from being or even thinking that we have to be twice as good, because we do. We are still not judged on the same level playing field.
I love that. It makes me think of this, and I have to ask you this question. One of the things that I love about you is that you really are focused on throwing alley-oops to people. And so part of leading well, and if you think about like this whole idea of throwing an alley-oop, the point guard on the floor typically is leading because they understand the play that's being run. They're trying to utilize court vision to see who's where. And point guards aren't always the ones that throw the alley-oops, but most often they do. They find a way to put people in the right position that they elevate at the right time, and they score big. Now, I just preached the whole message right there, right? And I look at you, and one of the things that I know that you are committed to is throwing alley-oops. There are so many people in the industry who have benefited from you being at the right table, hearing what someone is needing, trying to organize connections. You've shown up in ways for people that don't always get acknowledged. When people are on a journey to get their next position, you've used your voice of influence to help them to access that next seat, which is leadership at its finest. As I was going on my journey, and I did not tell many people at all of this last step that I was taking, knowing that I was going for this position, leading a national association, and both in being young and Black, I was seeking to do something that's uncommon in our space. And I talked to you about it, and it was like, listen, I want you to get that, and whatever I need to do for you to get it, go and get that position. Let's make it happen. I believe that you are the queen of throwing alley-oops, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about one, why you have such a passion to invest in the elevation of other people, specifically your commitment to Black and brown people. But beyond that, help our listening audience to be able to understand and digest better how they can look for their own opportunities to throw those alley-oops, because to me, that is leadership. Let's talk about it.
Wow, that's a whole lot to unpack. One, the first thing is I can only do what I've been shown. And what I call the legends of AACUC, the initial board members and founders and supporters of AACUC, they taught me. I already came with my own sense of self, if you will, and purpose. But the AACUC leadership, the legacy leaders, they were all movers and shakers in the industry. And as a young person, I think I started at 39. I'm 62 now. Black don't crack. And so, but they taught me that it was okay that we're Black and the powerfulness of that. I didn't have that when I grew up. And I'm going to say this because it needs to be said. I would say to people, I'm the whitest Black woman you'll ever meet. Well, pandemic cured me of that, because I don't need to be a white Black woman. I just need to be a great woman, which I am, in my opinion. And so I work real hard at it, right? But giving, as you say, the alley-oops to other people, I am a queen, but it is my job to be a king and queen maker. That's what I'm here to do. That's what AACUC leaders did for me. That's why I'm able to walk boldly in a room and in a space and own that space because I was nurtured and I was given opportunity. You will rarely see me at our conference out front. We make space for people to be for people who typically don't look the way that the mainstream people think stuff is supposed to look like. I have people from all walks of life. Lucy Ito says it best. She said AACUC is the United Nations of the credit union movement. There's so much diversity that you see in any of our calls, any of our functions, because while we are entitled the African American Credit Union Coalition, we embrace everybody. So people ask me, what's the secret sauce to that? How do you have all these young people? As you know, as younger people, you want to be somewhere that there's a purpose. You want to be somewhere that you can learn something. And so, one, I don't like to waste my time. So I'm not going to waste your time. And the reason, right? The reason why I am so into making sure that the young people have a chance is because that's what I was given. And so anytime you have an opportunity to bring somebody else up with you, you should do that. The other thing that I do, Ronaldo and Kristen, is I make sure that I explain my moves to the people behind me. I explain those moves so they understand it. That's why I did that for this one. That's what I don't have any children, so I'd like to think that everybody that I'm working with, they're my kids in some way. And so every child needs something different. Every child wants to be mama's favorite. Well, that being the case, help them be mama's favorite. Give them what they need so that they can be the best that they can be. But the most important thing that any leader can do, young, old, is to make sure you understand where the person is trying to go. So go and grow so you can help them accomplish that. I'm into reading. I don't do so much as the audiobooks, but I read a lot. There are books that I give to people, journals. I want people to start journaling so that they can reflect and see where they were years ago. Where are you now? So, some of my journals have had to burn some of those pages. But other than that, I'm just saying.
Now, here's the thing. You jumped us into, I feel like, another natural part of the conversation. And I know my wife will get us going and then in our next direction after this. But I was sitting here thinking, before you said all you said, I said, I need to ask her this, because sometimes when you are organizing spaces specifically for our people, there are those that can look at that and they could be like, oh, they are excluding, other people, or maybe it's a radical agenda or whatever. There could be all these thought processes about building places specifically for the growth and the development of Black people. Bottom line, even what we're doing now, we believe in leadership development for the whole, but we felt a passion in developing this system, this ecosystem, if you will, to focus specifically on the development of Black leaders, because we kind of scanned the market and we saw that much of what's out there as it relates to leadership development in a systematic approach has been designed by people who do not look like us. And even if they may be well-intentioned about us, they may have some gaps in their understanding of the specific nuances that we have as Black people. What I love about what you've done with the AACUC, the African American Credit Union Coalition, is a space that has been designed for the uplifting of Black people, but at the same time, you've been able to communicate and to convey to others who do not look like us that, one, we are not trying to seek to have exclusivity from a place of having, this negative disposition about others. That's not the goal here. This was designed to create a space of belonging and development for our people, and you've allowed others to come in and learn from us, or to contribute in their own way to investing in what it is that does matter to us. And when you come to the AACUC conference, you see people from all different walks of life. I want you to talk about that for a little bit, just what that balance looks like. How did you go about helping people to understand, listen, this is for our Black people? Because one of the things I could tell you at the AACUC, we didn't turn down any of our Blackness. It was like, listen, up in here, this is what we do. We Black, look, we Black and we are proud and we're going to do it well. But at the same time, hey, you're welcome to come in the room and see how we do what we do to also grow from what we're doing. Let us teach you, and you can bring investment. How did you do both? Because I am certain that it wasn't always where it is. I'm sure at one point people were like, what's that going on over there with the Black people?
And I'm sure they're still doing that, right? So I was just at a conference and two conferences in Las Vegas over the weekend. And at one of those conferences, I remember saying, I was doing a keynote speech, and I remember saying that, back in the day, if you saw two or more Black people gathered together, white people got scared. And so what's lovely now is we had 560 people at our conference. 200 were new. And I remember when we had 76 people at our conference, and it looked like it was black coffee with no cream. Well, when I looked into the audience in our conference in July, it was more mocha, right? Because so many people had come that didn't look like me. Well, let's face it, the colored majority has always had a lesser time. So my goal is, Adrian Johnson says, stick to the facts. The facts are, by 2030, this whole United States will be changed in its coloring. And so what can we do to make sure that the people who look like us have the best training that they can have so that they can be competitive? It is no secret that there is a lack of equity. There may be equality, but there's a lack of equity for Black and brown people in the United States. And so with AACUC, I like to think that we're helping to level the playing field. We have a commitment to change Credit Unions United Against Racism initiative that we want all of the credit unions to lean into. I believe because the credit union system is based on people helping people, I believe that with this mantra, with this initiative, we can help the United States eradicate racism. And if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't let it be one of the things that we stand for at AACUC, but I wholeheartedly believe it. I think that it's very, very important for people to understand that many people don't know this, Ronaldo, but when Hubert Hula Hoosman told me about the name of the African American Credit Union Coalition, my initial response was something I can't say, but I'm gonna make it nice. Was that just sounds like a militant Black organization? Now I said something different, but that's a paraphrasing what I was saying. So now that I'm the leader of this organization, I've leaned into, it's not the name, but how do people feel? When you say what you say, how do people feel? And I'd like to think that people feel loved and supported at AACUC. They can get a great understanding about African Americans, but not just African Americans, but themselves as well. The types of training and the education that we provide, it's not just for Black people, it's for all people, but certainly having Black people deliver that information is key. Having Black people deliver that information is key. I'll never forget, I have had the blessing of having General Sanchez, Grace Sanchez, who used to work at CUNA, and she served 3 CUNA presidents. And so she was very familiar with Mike Schneck, who is the economist over there. Well, at our conference, I like to have us have the state of address and what's it going to look like, what's the economy and all that. And so she was helping me, and she didn't know, very new in our organization. And she asked Mike to speak at our conference. And I said, why is this white man speaking at our conference? We have Black people who can do this. And it wasn't that I didn't want Mike to do it. It was that we have people who can. And so it was a learning experience for her. Now, the funniest thing, in 2022, I had Mike attend our conference and provide our economic update because he is a great ally. She was right. He is a good man. But I had to know that just as white people sometimes don't know us, and so they have the wrong thoughts, well, we can have the same thoughts too. If you don't seem like you're engaging or if you look a certain way, it's not good. And I'm the one who teaches about not being biased, but you have to be honest about where you are and then looking at how to move past that. So that was a long way around that question. I apologize, but I really do think there were some gems in there.
Absolutely. I mean, the work that you're doing in the organization, the African American
Credit Union Coalition.
Listen, I want to make sure I get it right. Is doing a really great job and doing a lot of work that needs to be done. But I wanted to ask you, because I know you've been leading for an extensive amount of time, and I just wanted to find out for people who are listening, because I'm sure as leaders, they've encountered many obstacles sitting in the seat as the top leader or walking in leadership. What are some unexpected obstacles that you've encountered as a leader?
The one that all of us get, if you have an opinion and can share your opinion, you will get, "You're so articulate." And so I challenge my sisters and brothers of a lighter hue that if you wouldn't say that to your white colleague, don't say that to a black colleague. It's so patronizing. It's just so patronizing. Even if you think it, write it down. Don't share it. Just hold it close to your vest. Hold it close to your vest. One of the other things that can be very challenging for women is men not taking you seriously. People laugh at me. I'm a stickler again about how you dress, and I dress so that I'm taken seriously. I also believe that that Climax band has a theme song just for me. The men all pause when I walk into the room. So that's a whole nother conversation about something totally different. However, when you are commanding, when you are being in leadership, when you're providing something, you have to know that you are in charge, and you have to be very very confident about your decisions. I find that sometimes in leadership, people say imposter syndrome. Well, I've never had an imposter syndrome. I've known since I was 12 that I was going to be who I am. And I knew that God was going to bless me to affect change in many people's lives. But it's important that you have that behind you, that you have a mantra that you can go to that's going to keep you going when things get rough. One for me is, this too shall pass. If you think about it, okay, where you are now, how long it's going to take you to get there, I'm not sure. But if it's uncomfortable for a reason. Understand that anything that you are doing is worth doing well. It's not going to be easy. Most things are hard. It stops being hard when you're truly walking in your purpose. So when we get there, we're walking in our purpose, it's easy. It may only be easy for a season. And that's something that we have to know. The other thing in leadership that I would make sure that people really want to know, or know this, know who you can trust. Make your circle tight. Not everybody shares your vision for greatness. Unfortunately, there are people who are your friends because they want to get what you got. They don't want to work for it. So you cannot throw your pearls among the swine. I probably didn't say that correctly, but be very careful about how you are engaging other people. And if you're not lifting somebody else up, then shame on you. And if you're the smartest person in your group, get a new group.
Listen, that's a soundbite right there. But I want to touch on a little bit of what you said, because you mentioned about the difficulties that you might have encountered being a woman in leadership. And I know for many listeners out there, we may have women who are experiencing difficulties and really having a hard time breaking through that glass ceiling, really getting the respect that they deserve, and really being given equal opportunities simply because of being a woman. I think, and it makes it even more challenging being a Black woman, So I want you to talk a little bit about what your journey was like, because I'm sure you encountered a lot of things being, getting to the seat that you're in, being a Black woman. So I just want you to unpack that a little bit and share with our audience what your journey was like.
Well, most of us who are in leadership, who are Black women, at one point in time have been told that they are the angry Black woman. Everybody goes through it. And instead of being so a white man said that to me in the front of a group of people. And he said, "You're just an angry Black woman." I said, "Oh, I'm an angry woman, all right." I said, "Wouldn't you be if all you ever saw on TV is negative images of yourself? And if you see that kids are still being shot by police or by people, and there's not any consequences. Yes, I am an angry woman because of those things, but I am not a stigma. So get over that." It's important as a Black woman to know who you are and to surround yourself with people who get you, who appreciate you, and want to work with you. Everybody doesn't have to like me, but you will respect me. You will absolutely respect me. You don't have to like me. It's business. If you like me, that's great. If you don't, I feel like that's on you, not on me. But in any event, you have to have Black women should have a very strong sense of self and understand that you are enough. And when you walk into the room, you don't have to be anybody but yourself. You may have to code switch a little bit. So do what you have to do, but you still can have your authentic self come through. There's a way to address any and everybody. And I believe in knowing how to read the room. Learn how to read the room. There's sometimes when it's okay to speak up and be passionate about your answer. Other times it's okay to sit there and listen and take notes. That scares people when you're taking notes when they're talking too, just so you know.
It does. They don't know what you're about to come with. You know, you like, oh, Lord. So I'll say this, and I know we're landing this interview now. And so I really want you to share some of that rich wisdom. You've already been doing it throughout this conversation with our listening audience. One of the things that I recognize is that the rear view mirror often offers a lot more wisdom for us, because when we're looking back, we have the opportunity to see where we've grown, how we've learned to handle things, what we might have done differently had we known what we know now. And the greatest students are those who understand that those who've gone before us have something to bring to the table. My wife will tell you, there are two ways I believe you get wisdom. You get it through direct experience, or you get it through somebody helping you through or by sharing their own experiences. So I've been the type, if you had to fall in order to get the wisdom, I don't want to fall. You just tell me how you feel and how I don't need to fall. I like that kind of wisdom being brought to the table. But I'm certain that if you had your younger self in front of you, that there's something that you would say based upon what you have seen. If there were one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, something that I know is going to help our listeners today, what would you tell your younger self?
Ronaldo, that's a good one. What would I tell my younger self? That everything you've been thinking is true. And I'm going to unpack that for you. I believe in God. I believe in success. I believe in being prepared. I believe in writing it down, making it plain. Your goals have got to be in front of you. Someone once said that they walked around my house, and he said, he's a motivational speaker. He says, Renee, you should charge for all the stuff that you have up on your walls. It's like a mausoleum in here with all these powerful sayings. I believe that I would tell young Renee, you are enough and you are going to make it. Just stay the course. And that's what I would tell myself. Stay the course. I have done that. I don't think that advice would change. Stay the course because look of where you are. And you have to have a real clear vision of who you are and what you can do. I know I am a bad mama jamma, but I work real hard at it. And that's the difference between men and women. If I say that, if I was on the basketball court saying that, nobody would think anything about it. No one would think anything about it if I was a man saying it. But as a woman saying it, ooh, she's conceited. She's full of herself. My sister told me this a long time ago. I am not conceited. I'm convinced.
Oh, that's good.
Now that just blessed me, and that was a sound bite right there. I am not conceited. I'm convinced. I love it. Even just saying, you are enough. You are going to get there. You're going to make it. Just stay the course. That is so true. We have seen that over time, that if you keep going, the things that, even right now, we're unpacking a new level of living our wildest dreams. And it's just so amazing to watch what that looks like. I tell you what, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. I know that our listening audience has been impacted by you. I know that they want to know how they can keep up with what you have going on. Now, y'all got to know, Renee is not doing a whole lot of social media, so she's not about to give y'all a lot of social media handles. But if they want to keep up with the work that you're doing, can you tell our listening audience how to keep up with you?
Sure. Thank you for that. I have a phenomenal team, and you can see the stuff that we're doing at www.aacuc.org. That's www.aacuc.org. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn. I think they do Twitter, tweet. I don't know.
Oh,
I think they said they were going to do TikTok, but I've got a team that's a super. I know we're on LinkedIn and I know that we're on Facebook, so they could see us at AACC.org. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Renee. We have enjoyed our time and our conversation with you. You are always a delight to be with, and I knew that this would be a moment of a lot of great treasures in this conversation. I'd like to say to our listening audience, thank you for tuning in today. We recognize that we all, especially as leaders, have very busy schedules. So the fact that you've given us any of your time today, we are grateful. We hope that you continue to tune in for the next episode here at Grow Black Leaders, where we are creating a space, an ecosystem, a community for Black leaders to cultivate Black leaders. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Grow Black Leaders. Don't let your growth journey stop here.
Be sure to subscribe and visit our website, growblackleaders.com, and follow us on social media at Grow Black Leaders.